Adventure Ho Illumineers, and welcome back to another episode of the DuckTale Dads. I am one of your hosts, Nathaniel, joined as always by Mack and Ryan. Let's kick it off, boys, with a little bit of what's new in your world. Mack.
Yeah, new in my world, I think the biggest thing I have to share is that, well, you guys know that my 3-year-old has a cut in the middle of his forehead that was stitched up about 6 months ago. Well, this past weekend, he added another layer to that situation on his forehead. He got one right above his right eyebrow. So now he has stitches on his forehead for a second time. This time was he was on a couch and he went to turn around because he was looking out a window, and he went to turn around to my wife just to say, "Hey, look at this squirrel," or whatever it was. And as he turned around, he started sitting up on the armrest, and he slipped off the armrest. And right next to the couch is a plant. We are at Grandma and Grandpa's house, so I'll say it's not our fault, Mom and Dad's fault. But at Grandma and Grandpa's house, as he was falling, he grabbed onto the plant to try and catch himself. Well, he pulled the plant down, and then the plant landed on his face, and he got a cut right on his eyebrow. So this Saturday, my wife and I ran to urgent care with our 3-year-old, and a second round of stitches. This one a little bit tougher because 3-year-olds have way more opinions than 2.5-year-olds, come to find out. So he was a little bit more giddy and nervous this time, but Paw Patrol to the rescue. We had that playing on our phones while he was distracted getting the stitches in. But overall, he did very well. But now he has a second cut on his forehead, and let's just pray that that's the last. Other than that, no Lorcana for me. I was too busy dealing with trying to make sure the 3-year-old was happy and healthy for the duration of the weekend. Ryan.
Mac sounds like he just has a really bushy eyebrow right now. Is that right? Is that what
He
it looks like? He
does.
just has a caterpillar sitting on top of his eye.
Yeah, he's been graced with my very caterpillar eyebrows, so it will hide in due time underneath his eyebrow, I think. But it is what it is. 6 months ago, we thought his scar would never go away in the middle of his forehead, and now it's barely noticeable. So we know it's just a matter of time, and this cut is a little bit smaller than the first one. But gosh, man, kids can just get into mischief, even unintentionally, and still get injured and have to go rush to urgent care. So it's never a dull moment with little ones, that's for sure.
Ain't that the truth? Well, if there's hope for Harry Potter, there's hope for your little one. That's for sure.
Good, nice pull.
So what's new with me? Let's see. On the Lorcana front, I made it to a set champs, and on the personal front, I brought my significant other, brought my wife to her first set champs too. So that kind of blended all of that together. We had grandma come up and babysit for us, which is super nice and convenient to be able to make that happen because it's been a minute since that grandma has been up to visit. So they wanted some toddler and some baby time, and so we said sure, definitely. And then we both got to go play right around the corner at our local game store. Great time, biggest tournament, biggest event I've been a part of. And I think we'll get a little bit more into the weeds and the details of that event. But all in all, successful evening together and for all involved. So it was a great time, great weekend,
Yeah,
and that's what's new.
yeah, good point, Ryan. Nathaniel, I think we should hold off our questions and statements as much as we want to, because this is the Set Chat mid roundup episode. But I want to ask so many questions about how the success went with you and your wife, Ryan. So let's save that for a couple minutes from now.
Absolutely. Nathaniel, what's new in your world?
I can keep it pretty short and sweet. I think from a personal perspective, we officially have our first order of t-shirts in as the DuckTale Dads. So that has arrived.
Heck yes.
I'm excited to see at least Ryan here at an upcoming Set Champs. Depending on how the schedule goes, I can potentially drop off Max shirts as well. So very excited. I think Ryan had touched on this earlier, kind of alluded to this, that you would very easily be able to pick us out of a crowd. This is part of why he said that. So excited to wear those shirts to upcoming events and just, talk about the experience of being one of the DuckTale Dads. And officially kind of stepping into my role as Dewey. So excited on that one.
Kind of along those lines, I do want to mention that one thing I forgot to mention in my What's New in the World. I met a listener and met up for a trade. Didn't know that it was that they listened at all. They didn't know I was one of the DuckTale Dads. We just were chatting after we had met up at a random Dairy Queen to make the trade happen. No safer place than a Dairy Queen, right? To make a trade happen for a card game. But yeah, I got my hands on some Maui Sharks, half Sharks, so I'm prepared for the rotation and see what all settles out in terms of the meta after rotations. But shout out to Tristan. So thanks for meeting up for that trade, and happy to meet you. And shout out to his son Logan too for hooking me up with the Maui Half Sharks as part of that trade, since it was technically the son's cards that we were trading. So appreciate that from both of you, and looking forward to seeing and meeting more of the people that listen to our podcast, however soon or however far in the future that will be.
Ryan fully understanding the power of the half shark, which we can get into a little bit more as it pertains to my recent Lorcana experience since our last episode, and that's really around how I got to experience the shark in all of his glory. So I'll have that as a little sneak preview into my first set champs. We're 3 weekends in, and only one set champs under my belt, 1 for Ryan and 0 for Mack. So we're a little slow out of the gate with this 5 weekend set champs, but hopefully going to get to at least 1 or 2 more, maybe for me and Ryan. We'll see. But yeah, it was fun to get out there again. I think that was one of the biggest things, is I'm reminded of how much I like being in the community when we're playing at these, and just connecting with people we don't always see. It was really great. I got to see Lance, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I think what we really want to get into is we want to hear a little bit more about Ryan's experience, because Ryan, you got your wife out of the house for a set champs, and this was not a small set champs as far as our general area, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think we said, right, for the last set champs we were at, a lot of them, numbers wise, were somewhere between 10 and about 18 to 20 people. Many of them. I think a few of them did get up into the high 20s, maybe as much as 30. But I think a fair number of them were kind of in that like 10 to 18 number. You brought your wife to a set champs, and there were 25 people, and it was a pretty strong room of players. Let's hear about it, man.
Yeah, I mean, like I said in my What's New, it was the biggest event that I've ever been a part of in terms of the Lorcana community, and to get my wife out for her first event at that scale was pretty great, pretty cool. Um, so we were actually we showed up and we got there a little bit early because we go to the grocery store next door and get some things quick before we went to the game store itself. So we got there a little early. We were there probably 10 or 15 minutes early, and we met one of our other uh, buddies that we play with, one of the other people that we play with outside of game stores whenever we're able to meet up and that kind of thing. And so it was great to have him there too as his first set champs as well. I mean, it was really, really new experiences all around. There was a a number of females in the field as well. I think there was like a quarter of the field was females, which is strikingly high for a trading card game, and I was really glad and grateful that that was the first experience for my wife to go to that as well. So it's not just my wife in a room of all male participants. It was nice to have a handful of people there. We saw previous guests on the podcast. We saw Christian and Hannah, both were in attendance. It was really nice to see them and meet up with them, and then to introduce the names that we talk about on the podcast, and that I've talked mentioned to my wife over dinner conversation as well, of like, hey, these are the faces of the names that we talk about sometimes. Um, yeah, but it was a pretty strong field. I mean, like I said, Hannah and Christian are there. I think they both have champ mats from this set. There was a couple of other local players that they travel to the regional events, usually in the Wisconsin area for those bigger events. And then a handful of people that have found success, especially at this store and other stores in the area, and previous set champs, and finding wins and finding tops. So pretty competitive field to show up to, and to have as our first event, not just of this set, but of my wife's Lorcana career. And she said she had a blast. I checked in periodically throughout the process. I mean, you know how it goes. Playing these set champs, you don't always have every opportunity to be right next to the people you went with. So got to check in with her periodically throughout the evening, and she said she was having fun each step of the way. People she was meeting, she was, having being cordial with, at least, and people weren't outright mad at her for discarding their hands away since she was playing Steel Song, Amber Steel, and the song package. So she was her one goal, she said when she was going in, her two goals. One was to win a single game in any one of the matches, and two was to not have anybody be mad at her at the end of their matches. So I think she accomplished both of those in spades, considering she went 3-0-2 through the 5 rounds of Swiss, 3 wins and 2 ties. One was an unintentional draw. Her first round, her first match, she actually ended up drawing 1 win each, and then going to turns and not being able to finish in third game. And then she won her next 3 matches, and then intentional drew in the final one since the math worked out. Um, so yeah, she won that one game, that's for sure. She definitely won at least one game on the evening, and it didn't seem like anybody was outright mad with her after their matches either, when I was able to walk over and chat.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so the listeners are aware, you alluded to what your wife ran, right? Steel Song, the song package, and just to be clear, you ran your Blurple build, right? That was the plan for you.
Yep, I ran Amethyst Sapphire, good old trusty, old faithful. The deck that I've been getting absolutely destroyed by my wife at home when we've been just playing on our own. Since she's been playing Steel Song, I play Amethyst Sapphire. I have couple other decks that I have built that I've tried to just mix in the rotation. We both have mixed in the rotation just to see new things. And yeah, so I ran Amethyst Sapphire. I found success with that. Again, that was nice to have a nice day with that. I also was 3 wins and 2 draws through 5 rounds of Swiss. And then my wife and I both made top four, actually. So we both won our first round matches of Top Cut, and then both were eliminated in the same round. Sort of fortunately, because then we could go get Perkins for a late dinner afterwards as well, which just seems to be a tradition. I don't need to go to set champs at the store now, I guess. So thanks to both of y'all and Connor for starting that tradition for our group at this store.
Yeah, that's incredible. I was a bit shocked. I was following on PlayHub. I know how competitive you and your wife have been at home, but for a first experience set champs, 25 plus people, to go 3-0-2, not only you but your wife as well, that is quite an achievement, I think. So kudos to her. That it's wild, and I will tell you, my wife. I was telling her right when you guys started, I was like, "Oh, Ryan's wife is playing today." She's like, "Oh, cool. Well, let me know how she does along the way." And then I was like, we checked about 2 hours later, and that's when she was 1-0-1. And I was like, "Oh, she's actually doing quite well." She's so far on track to make top 8. And then soon after round 4, I was like, "Oh, she can just intentionally draw." And I explained to her how the process worked for intentionally drawing, how she could guarantee top 8. And I was just like, that is crazy for how big of a field this is. And by that point, I think I messaged you too, and I was like, my wife is all in on on following Ryan's wife to make sure she wins. So my wife definitely got invested, and maybe this is the springboard for me to truly get her to start practicing with me. And we'll see. Maybe my wife will be another member of the women Lorcana community in Minnesota, which I hope is the case in the near future. But congrats to her, congrats to you, semis in a big field. That must have felt good too, like as you alluded to, Christian and Hannah were there. Did you play any of them? If not, I'm sure you played some really strong players along the way. How was the competition overall, and how are you feeling just kind of confidence wise this season?
Yeah, I mean, just performance nerves. I did performance nerves leading up to it, especially once I saw how many people were there. I think I might have psyched myself out a little bit. But as we've talked about before, you start inking cards and playing cards, and you're like, oh, this is like, I know what's going on. This is fine. We're good. You get kind of into the flow of it, and then the nerves go away a little bit. Yeah, I did get to play Christian. I played Christian on his spicy list that he brought. He had was trying to pull off this really, really cool combo of I think one of the sets that's rotating out has a Chief Bogo in it that if you play a Floodborn character, you deal 1 damage to the rest of the board. And then his goal, had he communicated, he told me about after the match, because I didn't actually get to see it in action, was to get Chief Bogo out and then play Return of Hercules and put down Prince Philip from one of the sets that's rotating out. That allows you to banish all damaged characters, all opposing damaged characters. So pulled Bogo out of the bag, pull the Bogo effect out of the bag, deal damage, and then pull the Prince Philip effect out and wipe the board. So he didn't get to pull it off against me, but it was a really, really cool spicy deck list that I was playing against. And at one point he had 3 Bogos on the field, and he said, yeah, the deal was too good. I couldn't turn down a fire sale on Chief Bogo. Buy one, get one. And he got 3. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun to match up with Christian, and to obviously even more fun to find a win against him, whether it was a spicy list or his wheelhouse list. It's always fun to play against him. He's a good time. Looking forward to matching up with him again in the future, hopefully, and see how that next matchup goes. I doubt I'll get his number again. Let's be real. I think that was a fluke, but we'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, that's no small feat as well, because I guess my shout out for this episode is Hannah has won a set champs this season. So congrats to Hannah. Another very competitive field, one of which included Scott Markinson. So very strong players at the set champs she won. So congratulations to Hannah. So like there was a lot of competition there. I know she made top 8, and another really strong player within the Minnesota community who has he won an event. He has 3 top second places and then a 4th place. He's just, I think, isn't it Garrett? He's just absolutely destroying the Minnesota field right now for this set champ season. So, and he attended that event. So yeah, it was no shortage of competition. And I always love the 20 plus turnouts because it makes it feel more like a gauntlet, and you're there and getting your money's worth, so to speak. I just like 5 Swiss rounds at a minimum. A 4 seems like you really can't get out of a mistake if you make one in an earlier round, and you really have to rely on a winning percentage rather than trying to truly claw your way back with a 5th round.
Speaking of mistakes, I think this is a great time for me to bring up one of the biggest blunders I think I've ever made in playing Lorcana, whether it's in a tournament or not. It was in my second round matchup. I was playing against an Amber Steel aggro list. I was on the draw, and I hit my ramp. I found my Tipo, and I was like, great, I can contest board a little bit. I'll find something to do with it. They quested with their Daisy, and I triggered Daisy and found a 5 cost Bell Accomplished Mystic. It's like, great, that's in my hand. This will be perfect. And in my mind, for some reason, I saw that bell and everything else went blank. Like, oh, this is the perfect play. What I'm going to do, because I had a sail in my hand too, I'm going to sail, ink back up to 3, and then shift this bell and take something out. And for whatever reason, my brain didn't quite process it until I had played the sail, drawn the card, inked twice, and then went to play the bell and went, oh, that's a typo. I can't play this. And then I had to pass turn. I was like, oh no. So then he quested for like 12. And I was like, yeah, this one's done. Great. Next. Let's go next. Don't tilt, don't tilt, don't tilt. Let's go next. And then I was able to find my way back, and then on the play and then on the draw in the third game, I was able to find a win from it. But I don't think I've ever mixed up a tipo for a bell before in a competitive setting or any type of playing setting. So that was probably my biggest blunder, and I don't know why it happened or how it happened. Guess it was just the pressure of facing an Amber Steel aggro list that's already showing us 7 lore on board and seven on the scoreboard and 7 alive on board on turn 3 on your turn 3. So that was probably my biggest mistake of the entire day, and was able to find a way out of it eventually. Thankfully, that game didn't last very long because it doesn't against Amber Steel aggro. But that was probably the biggest mistake that I made. And grateful to find a way past it, find a way through it. Just had to recommit to the same lines I played over and over and over again.
Muscle memory at that point, right? But also, I think the last thing we got to talk about with your successful set champs with your wife is truly the Perkins trip. It's now becoming a staple for this store. So this is the exact store where, for those of you who don't know, just a little bit of background to our listeners, 4 of us attended Set 6 Set Championship at this store. And this was the first time at least, or 4 of us, 4 plus of our friend group, were able to attend a Set Champs together. And at that Set Champs, all 4 of us made top 8. And Nathaniel, you've alluded a lot to like this truly being one of those first banner moments that you specifically look back to. And it kind of seems like for you, it's one of those key points that, because this was prior to us even talking about a podcast. It feels like for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, this was a point where you really started to get engaged in this game even more so than you were at that point. So maybe you want to touch base and remind our audience just truly how you felt when we all 4 achieved top 8 and the celebration at Perkins afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of funny, right? Because it was one of those awkward numbers, right? Where I think we had 15 or 16. So it was just 4 rounds of Swiss. And so Ryan did have that unenviable like 3-1 bubble out, which is, that happens. But like we were, I think, literally coming out of Swiss, we were like 4, 5, 6, and 7. So like, I think I was 7. It was just like, it was cool to like get the promo card because like that's ultimately like the goal, right? And I think it did, to your point, like it really did springboard for me, okay, I've got a fun group that I like to play this game with, to talk about it with, and now we're going and we're actually playing in tournaments together. That's really cool. And then a week later, I went to the Set Champs that I won. So that, like for me, it was an 8 days, stretch of like, this is so cool. And as I touched on earlier, right, like winning the Set Champs, it was cool that Ryan was there, but maybe it was the Perkins trip, I don't know, but like the whole experience of like success with all 4 of us at one place, and then like getting to share in that afterwards and like really revel in like that was so fun. It was a really competitive group. We all got the promo card. Like it just was cool because like nobody really had any like hard feelings. None of us won that Set Champs, but we just felt really great coming out of it. And I think that's, for me, like I still, to your point, I look back on it as one of these early like amazing memories. Ryan was still quite new to the game at that point, right? Because he came to the game during Azurite C. So it was cool to see him have the early success, and obviously it runs in the family since his wife is as well. I want to double down too on how impressed I was watching the results on PlayHub, because coming out of 5 rounds with a group of 25 people, Ryan was the 1 seed and his wife was the 3, right? So like they were way up there, and it's like, for her to do that well right away, it's just amazing. And we've started to come to expect Ryan to have, pretty consistent results. So I think it's just cool to see both of you. Ryan, you haven't even hit a year yet. She's in her first Set Champs, and you're both finding the success. And part of that comes from, a level of hard work where you're testing decks, you are talking through play lines. That all matters. I think when I chatted with Ernie early and asked him, because it was actually that set, right? It was Azurite C where Ernie went like 5 of 6 on finals, with his red blue, just absolutely cruising. And I remember asking him, what do you do? How do you get that good? And he said, I practice a lot. So he really knows, what cards to play, what cards to ink, and that matters. And I think that starts to show, right, when you can go to your first set. Because I'd actually messaged our group and said, none of us got cards on our first Set Champs, right? Like I got 9th at my first. Mack, you talked about how you went with some, not fully meta decks and kind of got rolled,
Yep.
Like, it's a learning experience. And so for her to do that well, it was just amazing. So again, like double down on that. She absolutely crushed it. I mean, to go to top 4 then as well, right? Like she didn't just stop there. She actually went into the top 4 and ended up losing to the player we just referenced who won the tournament, right? Who's been to 4 of 4 finals in the Set Champs that he's been to, or 5. I mean, it's unbelievable run that he's had this set, and continues to have success through every set. I think he's a very good player in our area. But to do that well, I think it speaks to the practice and her level of attention to detail, and knowing the right cards to play at the right time. So again, plus 1 on that. And yeah, I think Ryan, The Perkins after the tournament just truly hits different.
It really puts the closure on the night, right? Because you have the babysitter already lined up. It's not, whether it's 9 or 10 p.m., like you're just hungry. You haven't eaten in 6 hours probably, because that's, you usually don't get a chance to go take a break and go eat during the event. So like it just really puts a nice little bow on on the end of the night. Um, I do want to say that at Perkins, we were talking about like, so what do you think? How was it? Did you have fun? You want to do it again? She's like, yeah, we could probably try to do it again. I don't know if we're going to do it all the time because obviously it takes a little bit of effort to line up a babysitter and to only have them be lining up babysitters just to go play Lorcana doesn't quite fit what our values and what we want in our for our family. But that being said, I'll probably I think I'm hopeful we'll be able to get her out for at least one set champs each season and see how things go. Um, I think the onus will be on me to try to update the lists accordingly and make sure that she has a deck that she can run and that's effective and is relatively strong. And so that'll be a little fun of a little bit of a fun brain experiment that even if it's a deck that I don't necessarily want to play, it could be a deck she wants to play, and so we can put some stuff together that maybe I would never ever think about touching otherwise. So that's exciting. That's one of the most exciting pieces from the entire day is that she had a good enough experience that she's actually open. She's even open to the idea of doing it again.
Yeah. And I have to ask, what have we done with the brand spanking new promo card that she just won?
She has no sentimental tie to it, she told me. So we will, it's currently just sitting in our storage container in a top loader still. Both of ours are, and we'll just go from there with it and see what we want to do with it. I don't think we're going to display it anywhere. Like I said, no sentimental tie to it, just the enjoyment and the memory of being able to kind of share that experience together is enough for us. So that's what we're doing with it right now.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah. Well, congrats on a successful weekend, man. I mean, that truly is incredible that you got to share that and share in a fair amount of success. Just really puts the cherry on top. So, yeah, pretty amazing. Okay, well, I can probably talk a little bit about my Set Champs experience because we did post about this on social media, and I had to make sure that I included within that note that somewhere during this tournament, when the results came through, I knew Mack would be smiling because I officially ran Red Blue Shark, much to Mack's delight. We've had Christian on the pod before, right? And he had issued us this challenge to run some different color inks this set and see how we do with them. He didn't necessarily dictate that it had to be at Set Champs, but just like try out some different stuff than maybe what we were really comfortable with and had been using. I had been playing Purple Steel for 2 separate sets and went and brought Sapphire Ruby, or Ruby Sapphire, the Half Shark list that has been sort of been made more famous by DKP, the world champion. There's some certain tweaks there. Sometimes people opt for a couple of cards here and there, but it's generally that list. And it was a 19 player tournament with a lot of very, very good players as well at this tournament. And so I didn't really have huge expectations going in because I had never run Red Blue Shark at any kind of like formal event. I had tested with it. I had heard Mack gush about it, but like I'd never really like played this. And
Endlessly gush about it. Endlessly gush about it.
Yeah,
Yep.
As I should. There you go. Continue.
It is his one true love. Part of what also made me want to run it is I was able to get a playset of Sharks when he wasn't as expensive. He is going up in price. So to all our listeners out there who don't have playsets, if you think you might run this one day, you might want to get on it soon. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate about the price of the card, but I have a feeling it's going to be extremely good for a long time because it will be for sure here post rotation because it's an Azurite Sea card. So once I got that, it kind of felt like I was even more obligated to try this thing out because Mack had talked about how great it was, and I did, and my first match was against Amber Steel Aggro, which as we all know, right, just turns on the gas pedal and it's so crazy. And I was on the draw, was able to squeak out a win there. So I and it was one of the most fun games of Lorcana I've ever had. Because again, I seem to have a habit of doing this in game 3s where both me and my opponent are like super sweating and like, oh my gosh, we're almost going to time and we're both in the teens at the same time where we're kind of racing and trading and doing all those things right late in the game to try to eke out that getting up to 20. And I think I had told Mack about this afterwards, but my opponent actually got to 19 twice, and I brought them back down to 17 two different times. So he was at 17 three times that game, and I was able to squeak it out. And so that was my round one. So I go basically to time, and I share that because we've alluded to this a little bit before, right? Ryan's a blurple guy, Mack's a red-blue guy. What's the common denominator? It's blue. And what does blue mean? Long days of Lorcana. Your matches are going to take forever. Your turns are going to take forever. But you accepted that, and I said I accepted my fate. I actually finished the match and said, well, I signed up for this. I played a blue deck. I knew if it's 3 games, it's probably going to be lengthy games. And sometimes even when it's just 2 games, it's lengthy matchups. And I'll get into that in a second. But I was able to pull that out and was like, okay, I got 2 minutes to like take a breath. So I, collect myself. I'm like, wow, that was a crazy fun game. Let's do it again. And I run into Lemon Lime Discard, which it's not the best matchup for Shark ever. But I was able to play around it as a former Emerald Steel stan. I was able to take that one. And then, Mack talked about the power of the blue-red items. And this was actually where I was kind of proud of a specific decision, right? Like we talk about gameplay and how like micro decisions really matter over the course of a game or over the course specifically of a 3 game series where you find out what your opponent's playing, and then game 2 you might play a little bit differently. And after game 1, I was playing the red-blue Thanos list, as Mack has called it before, right? And I saw Hideaway in my opening, pre-altar in my hand. And I actually kept it. And so I pushed X number of cards back, pulled them in, and I just kept the Hideaway because I was like, I know this will be important, and I'm on the draw, so I'm going to need this card. And it stuck there. It stuck there. Maurice's Workshop came down. That's very tempting to push that into the Inkle right away to stop the early draw. I just said, I think I'm going to be patient here, which as Ryan and Mack know, for me, patience, not necessarily always one of my strong suits, but I said, I'm going to hold it. And finally, I think he had quested with Tamatoa, got to play the dime for free. And the next turn he was going to play the big crab and get a million gazillion lore. And on my turn, first thing I did, 2, Hideaway, push that dime into the Inkwell. And that effectively won me the game, right? Because now there was no more stretch options. And I think at the time I was leading like 13-8. So I was just going to be able to kind of incrementally get enough lore at that point to sort of eke the game out, and was able to do that. But those 2 games in a red-blue mirror, Items versus Shark, took, I think, like 51 minutes. So if I had lost, it would have been an unintentional draw. Like there's no way we could have played a game 3. And so because of that, I was able to draw, and I was really happy because I was the 1 seed going into top 8. I ran into purple green discard, and it got me in 3 games. It was again super close. I was 1 card away from being able to win that one in 3. But I think for me it was really cool because I got to try a totally different ink combination and was able to have a decent amount of success. It made me want to go back and do it again. We'll see if I maybe run it back at the next one or not. But I can officially say that I have also found a love of the Shark shenanigans that Mack has been gushing about for 2 sets now. 3, really.
It's the most addicting card in the game, man. Once you go Shark, you never go back. Ryan got his play set for a reason, so we'll see if he makes the leap of faith as well into the Shark shenanigans. But yeah, and Nathaniel, you were talking about all these different deck builds. It seemed like it was a pretty diverse field at least what you ran into, right? Is that the case? Oh, yeah. Is that what you've been seeing over the course, or at least your first set champs here? Talk to the diversity of the meta.
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels almost more diverse in my opinion than the last set. I mean, I think everyone's been discussing how Amber Steel, the 2 variants, are very, very common. That was actually not really my experience. So of those 19 players, there was only like 1 or 2 Amber Steel aggros, and I think like 2 Steel Song. So 20% of the field was Amber Steel in some variety. Otherwise, there were multiple Lemon Lime discards. There was a couple different purple green discard decks. There were like three blue reds. So I mean, it was genuinely very diverse. Blurple ended up winning the tournament. There was a blue steel in the final. Um, yeah, it felt like a lot of the like good solid decks that we've come to know, but even some that maybe haven't been around for like a set or two also were really cropping up and doing well, right? Like the lemon lime discard made top eight. Yeah, it was very diverse, and I think that that's really fun because I've been like lost in like what am I gonna run, and I'm changing up all these things and trying all these different deck combinations per the Christian challenge. Um, you start to really understand like the style of the deck, what it wants to do, and if you like that, then great, and if you don't, then don't play that. But I think what's cool to me is it felt like just about five different decks could probably have won on the day, depending on the matchups and what cards you saw, and then maybe some of those decisions, right, that you made along the way. But it felt like it wasn't just like, you know, is it blue red? Is it blue steel? If no, you don't win, right? It felt like you could win with a lot of different combinations. And so I think that's really healthy and good for the game. Obviously we have set rotation right around the corner. We don't really know how that will impact the game one way or another, but I like the direction that it's been going right now because it does feel like because I joined the game in Shimmering Skies, right? And it feels like it's only widened. Like the pool of meta decks feels like it has only gotten wider since set five, like respectively each season. Ryan, I'd be curious to hear from your perspective at your set champs that you did with your wife. How were the decks? What was the distribution like there? I think it was a lot of Amber Steel, maybe.
It was the exact opposite of what you were just describing at your set championships. I think it was like 40% Amber Steel of some kind with a mix of aggro and Steel Song variants out there. It was just Amber Steel everywhere. Couldn't get away from it. There was a handful, or I think there was at least three Amethyst Sapphire players. There was two or three Amber Emerald. I think everyone was on the more aggro, like Chernodog-esque package. Um, two Amber Rubies actually, which was interesting. Two or three Emerald Steels, an Emerald Amethyst, and then Ruby Amethyst. Yeah, it was. I mean, it's diverse, no doubt about that. Oh, there's an Amber Amethyst that our friend ran. So that was fun too. It was just all over the place in terms of the meta, but it was heavily dominated by Amber Steel everywhere. Everywhere you looked, seemed like every other pairing had Amber Steel in it, and you had to go through Amber Steel in order to get through. I was just grateful I faced a variant that I feel like uh, my Amethyst Sapphire has a better opportunity to beat in the aggro version than the Steel Song version. So, and also grateful I didn't have to match up with my wife at any point because I think I would have gotten steamrolled because she knows my deck inside out and exactly what to do to beat me.
Yeah, and it's funny because obviously our audience can't see us, but as soon as Nathaniel posed the question to you, Ryan, I saw you roll your eyes. You seem just as sick of Amber Steel as I am, so at least in my opinion, I'm ready for rotation for sure when it comes because a lot of those first four chapters are very core. Almost half of those decks run the first four chapters, so it's just a matter of what's going to be reprinted with that. So we'll see if it's even a deck. I think the aggro deck is more likely to stay than the song version, just due to a number of the cards still being from sets 5 through 8. But we'll see. We'll see how common Amber Steel will be in the future, in the near future. Let's say when rotation is just beyond the horizon here.
Beyond the Horizon, nice little dad joke there.
I'm
Kudos.
glad you heard it.
I do think we should maybe slow the roll a little bit on how impactful rotation is going to be for a lot of the decks that have a lot of power from the first four sets. Because with 171 unique cards being reprinted, I have to think like they're not going to make all of those just the fluff vanilla cards. They're going to be the impactful ones. At least half of them are going to be impactful ones, which is a substantial portion of what the meta is made up of, right? So I guess I'm going to hold off judgment on exactly and speculation on exactly how impactful rotation is going to be for the meta. I'm hopeful that it shakes things up at least a little bit to make it exciting to build new decks and try new things and see how things work. Give give cards in sets 5 through 8 an opportunity to kind of find their way into decks where they were previously blocked by other cards that are included in sets 1 through 4 that may not be reprinted. So I'm interested to see how that shakes out. I'm just going to temper my expectations and temper my speculation a little bit after I heard that there was 171 cards being reprinted. My thoughts are that it's much more likely now that a lot of the power cards find their way into the Fabled set itself.
Yeah. On that note, do you guys want to shift gears, maybe talk a little bit about, because obviously some news has come out now with that. Ryan, you touched on the number of old cards being reprinted.
Let's do
That
it.
was a lot higher number, I think, than a lot of people anticipated. I think the early communications from Ravensburger was that it was going to be more than half. So a lot of people assumed it would be somewhere in the ballpark of 110 to 120. I don't know where that number came from. That just seemed to be kind of the general expectation. I think as far as the mathing, that made sense to a lot of people's brains with the numbers of rarities, the number of ink colors, right? It would kind of work out that way. Ultimately, I think we were very surprised that 171 would be reprints with only 33 new cards. I think one thing that I've touched on to you guys outside of an official podcast was I was really surprised when the reprint became clear that it was a true reprinting of the card, right? Like it is the exact same card. The only difference is in the bottom left. It will say set 9 instead of saying something like set 1, for example. I think I was a little disappointed with that decision because I thought it would be, I don't know, maybe I missed a memo too somewhere, but like the set 8 or set 7, the Captain Hook, right? Like it's the reprint of the OG Captain Hook from from first chapter. The 1-drop Challenger +2. The reprint or the I guess the new alt art version of that card that came out now in this later set, I thought was a really cool idea, right? Like a way to have an alternate version of the card, but have it fundamentally perform in a similar way, or in this case, the same text, but different art. I thought that's how they were going to roll it out. I was not under the impression that all of those cards would look the exact same, save for that one little tiny digit in the bottom left being different. I think that makes me even less inclined to buy sealed product and probably more looking for just those new cards, and then maybe some of the cards that I didn't have a playset of, now I have the opportunity to get that. So for that reason I'm happy, but I wish it would be different. I truly do wish it would be alternate art.
But they're going to rope people in. They're making a good business decision with the new rarities. I think the iconic rarities, even though it's disappointing to the community, the general consensus from the community is disappointed that there aren't alternative designs to those cards that will be rotated. They're still introducing iconic, and I just think it's the first iconic Minnie and Mickey, which we know. I think it's going to have, I would think that the first 1 to 2 weeks are going to be slow. But then as people on social media, they'll get FOMO and start seeing people pulling these iconic cards, and that'll just trigger the collectors or what have you to just go in and buy product until they get hands on the truly the first iconic cards, because it's going to be the Elsa from set 1. Like, these are the first iconic cards, and it will never be taken away from the Mickey and Minnie here. So if you're truly a collector, these will be the high value iconic cards that will last years. So I think it'll be slow, to your point, initially, but it'll rope people in from a collector's perspective, and it's a really smart business decision by Ravensburger. To your point, though, I personally am not upset about not changing the artwork of the cards that will be rotated out, because I think I kind of assumed that when they announced rotation, they announced like 4 or 5 cards that would be rotated out. One example that we know of is the Rockstar Stitch in their announcement. And in their podcast announcement, Rockstar Stitch, as they explained it, to me it made sense that they were going to keep the design the same. The only thing that changes is going to be the 9 in the little corner. And with that, You can still reuse your set 1 Rockstar Stitch. You don't need new copies of it. And to me, in my brain, that I just assumed that, okay, that's kind of how they want to make sure people know that you can still reuse cards, even the old versions, past rotation here. But now that I've seen a lot of the social media and community chatter on it, I can understand the frustration for sure, because then it's like, all right, what do I have to get excited about? Especially as if you're coming from a player perspective versus a collector perspective. The player perspective, there's very little incentive to get a new card unless the 30-some cards that are brand new are truly meta-defining. That's the thing that I don't think we know about, is if the cards that aren't a part of the 171, the brand new cards, are going to change the meta from a player-based perspective. So we'll see what happens, and as I think they'll start leaking more news late August into the release to Fabled. Thoughts on that, Ryan, from the what we know so far?
Yeah, I think you make some great points on the business decisions. I think that's a really important key point. I think the other key point with on the business side of things is that this seems like an incredible entry point for anybody that caught wind of Lorcana and was kind of curious or was like sort of collecting a little bit, but now they want to get actually into it. This really does feel like they're kind of printing a core set, if you will. Like these are the cards where you can start if you're kind of, just getting into the game. This is a perfect entry point. And for, established players that have been around for the last 2 years or any part of the last 2 years, yeah, it feels like, oh, there's a whole lot of cards I probably already have in this new set. So maybe it's not as enticing for established players on social media or forums or, Discord, whatever it is. But I think for anybody new to the game or newly discovering the game or just getting, old enough to read and now wanting to join the game as part of it maybe the parents have had an eye on it previously, but hadn't really jumped at it yet because, their kids weren't quite old enough, and now they can get into it. I think this could create this sort of like renaissance of new players entering the player base again too. So I think it's really interesting, and on the business side of things, a really good idea to have this renewed entry point for people to jump into it. The other piece, just to clarify, I think you said rotated out when you were talking about Rockstar Stitch. Rockstar Stitch is going to be printed in set 9, so it will be part of the rotation, and it'll be one of the reprints. Just to clarify that for the audience too.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. That's exactly what I wanted to jump in for. So you were ahead of me on that one.
Great mind, right?
I also do want to call out one thing, and like after kind of reading this and sort of starting to gather a little bit more of the community sentiment around it, like I definitely second what Ryan just said, right? Like for newer players, I think this is great. And I understand why you would do this. I've read that this is not necessarily a unique to Lorcana thing, right? Like other TCGs have like not have to, but do this, right? Where they have like some sort of a reprint set somewhere along the line to sort of offer up that entry point to people along the way. So if we had one reprint set every year or two, that's not like the end of the world. So, I think for me personally, I think it's an opportunity for me to say, okay, I'm gonna get my trove like I always do. I'll probably focus on just getting some singles, and then maybe set 10 is where I go in on like a box each or something, right? Or something like that. Because there will be more new cards in something like that. So presumably, we don't know. But it, you would expect, right? Like, that would be the case. So I definitely understand it. I think I just would have liked to see a few different, a little bit more of a bone, right? To like the established players with how some of the cards would be reprinted. But I second the fact that it does make sense.
But my collector bone is just going crazy for what they have announced. One that they have announced is the Winnie the Pooh Honey Wizard, and that enchanted card looks so good. And on top of that, the Set Champs promo looks amazing. So I want to do as many Set Champs with the Maleficent Monstrous Dragon. I can't get enough with what has been released with regards to Enchanteds and specific promos for this set. I can only imagine that all the Enchanted cards, along with the iconic and I'm forgetting epic rarities. They're just gonna look great, and the shine's gonna look great. I know the epics I think are kind of like a legendary. It's gonna be the same, but another. It's gonna be the same artwork, but a new rarity, so to speak. But I would imagine the shine is gonna be really good with even those cards. So I am so excited for the Enchanteds. That's one thing that I'm tempted to purchase packs for, is to try and pull one, but I'm going to put my foot down and maybe only stick to the trove that you alluded to, Nathaniel, because my budget will thank me later if I start diving deep into the collector treasure hunt again, for sure.
Yeah, on that note, Honey Wizard Enchanted might be one of the most like high value, not that playable cards that we've seen in this game, right? Like that will be I think one of the most sought after enchanteds, and it's not a princess, it's not super meta. It'll just be I think that's gonna be one where it's going to be very sought after, and I think to your point, like that's exciting for sure, and the new rarities are cool. I think that's a great. I think that will be fun to see those like as you're going through. Hopefully, maybe one of us sees an iconic, but at least to see the epic, kind of introduction this round, I think will be neat too.
I will add to the points y'all are making about what product you plan to purchase. I do plan to get a trove as well. I also think that I'll get. I do want to do like a pre-release event. It's always fun to do one of those at least, just like, or maybe multiple, because I do think that this is going to be an incredible set to play sealed and draft with because of the potential consistent power of the reprinted cards that will be present in this edit. I think it'll make for a lot of like dynamic gameplay in like a sealed or draft setting. So I think that'll be really cool. I do want to experience that at least once in this set. And then they have they did it with Lilo for set 8, I believe, or 7, and now they're doing it with an Elsa. So they have an amethyst like gift box, if you will, that has a special fancy Elsa fifth spirit in it. And I think I am more or less obligated to at least attempt to find my way into one of those, as well as the Trove and Sealed events as well.
Find
So
your way into one of those, Ryan. You need a playset of that card. Come on now.
my budget can't afford a place out of that. Let's be real.
Maybe some trades will be had to get you that, because I feel like as the resident Blurple player, you got to have some cool spicy artwork in there.
I'll include at least one, but blinging out my deck isn't quite what I'm here for. Just here for gameplay.
So I have one more thing, kind of like our fun question at the end of the pod here. One thing that's been circulating after the news of the 171 was, it seems that we're going towards down a path where reprints will include one of each color for a legendary. I don't know. Maybe there'll be like, for example, Ruby. Maybe they'll reprint both legendary, or use both legendary slots for a reprint. But let's just go under the assumption that there will be 6 legendary reprints, one of each colors. Off the top of your head, do we quickly want to go through what 6 do each of us think are going to be reprinted? One of them we already know, so that one's easy. Maleficent Dragon. That one we know it because it's the set. It'll be the set 9 promo card, so that will also be reprinted just for the bulk set. So that's the easy one. Ruby is taken care of, but the other 5, what are we thinking, or do we have a hunch anywhere from one way or the other with the other ones?
I personally think I've seen too many spoilers on this, and I don't want to perpetuate leaks and in a speculative sense. So I will refrain from this conversation just because I feel like I've seen too much already.
Okay, I know you have. I know you have. So let me rephrase for you specifically. Are there any of the ink colors that you feel like you haven't seen spoilers for that you would be comfortable in trying to guess? Or maybe what are you hoping for out of the legendaries? Do you hope that the legendaries they choose will be sustainable from a meta perspective, or do you think they're just picking generic characters that everyone can relate to because they're popular Disney characters? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think my selfishly, I just want my favorite cards to survive. So my Amethyst Sapphire legendaries that I can play with, I would love for those to survive. think that's kind of what I would be focused on, or what I am focused on, and making sure that, the deck that I like to play is still able to be played on the whole. And then on the other side of that coin, you mentioned reprints, but on the other side of that coin, there's also six legendaries that I think they posted numbers that there's going to be six legendaries that are new cards too, right? And so I'm hoping that those six legendaries, especially the two that are in Amethyst and Sapphire, are have unique and interesting effects and abilities that potentially break the game in my favor the way that Maui Shark breaks the game for every Ruby deck that's ever played. So I think that'd be really cool. I guess I don't know which color it would have to be in because Ruby also goes with both Amethyst and Sapphire. So if they break it for Amethyst Sapphire, they're going to break it for Ruby Amethyst and Ruby Sapphire. So we'll see. But I am hopeful that there's some very, very interesting and creative gameplay mechanics that we get to see from the new cards as well and see what those effects are and how those impact gameplay and impact the meta.
Daniel, can you think of something off the top of your head that you
Yeah.
are hoping for or maybe are thinking might see out of the legendary slots?
So I think, if I had to guess, I think I'll put my guesses out there. So we know that Maldragon is one, and I think that the artwork looks unbelievable on the set 9 set champs card, where it's like, oh my gosh, really want to get that card. That looks unbelievable. So Ruby's covered, to your point. I think let's start from the top then. Amber. I think a lot of people expect it's going to be Rapunzel. I think it's not going to be Rapunzel. I think instead we might see either Stitch or maybe Kita. I could see. That seems in line with what Amber kind of does, right? Like sort of this like reduction in strength or whatever. I could see that. So that I guess I'll put mine at. I'll say Kita maybe. For Amethyst, I think it's going to be Elsa. I think she's just really iconic. It's the big Elsa Spirit of Winter. I think that's going to be the Amethyst one. Emerald, I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path here, and I'm going to say I think it's going to be Ursula Deceiver of All. She has not seen a ton of play more recently, and I think with certain cards being rotated out, that could maybe change. I think Diablo creates a lot of pain, so I don't know that necessarily will be the one that gets reprinted from an Emerald. I know a lot of Emerald players probably want to see that card be reprinted, but I don't think it's going to be included. That leaves us with, we already covered Ruby. Sapphire, I think it's going to be Hades. I think the reason why is that he's going to be the next primary villain, because right now it's Jafar, right? So we've had Ursula, Jafar. I think I could see Hades being the next one. And then Steel, I think some people have thought maybe it's going to be Beast, Tragic Hero. I would certainly love that, as I have nearly a playset of that card. But it doesn't feel as in line with Steel, like its identity, as much as something like a Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood does. So I'm going to go with Robin Hood for the Steel.
I think I'm very much aligned in a lot of your speculation here. One, very much Robin Hood. I think Robin Hood is exactly what they want to try and do with Steel. With Emerald, I could see Ursula. I'm also curious, though, like with Emerald, there are so many shifts that they seem to be trying to do to get that ink color right. Maybe they just completely throw a curveball and it's Belle Hidden Archer or something, that's just totally not to be expected. But as we all know, I'm so good with predictions. I don't think it'll be Diablo. So I'll say it here now, and we'll see how well that prediction holds up come post-rotation when we know what all the cards are going to be. So that's but I'm pretty set on that no Diablo reprint. I could also see Mufasa for Amber. I think that would be fun.
Oh, yeah.
Because Amber not only focuses on... Well, you mentioned Stitch. Mufasa kind of does the same thing with spamming the board with a lot of lower cost characters. So maybe that's what they're going to try and continue to do with that specific ink color. And last but not least, I like the Hades idea. I do think that that's a villain that they want to do every 4 sets. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if that's the one they end up choosing for Sapphire. but I also want to make notice that if they truly want Sapphire to be an items-based ink color, the Queen, the Diviner, is something that completely embodies that type of play style. So I could see that being a potential reprint. Sure, they have Scrooge from set 7 already, but we'll see if they're just giving more options to the item builds. And something to just, I don't know, back of my head makes me think that that's a potential with the Sapphire ink color. Sapphire and Emerald, though, are the hard ones for me to decide. I agree with you, though, that Rapunzel has seen its time, especially with it being a DLC promo card. I think they're ready to move on from Rapunzel, but we'll see what that does to the ink color, because it's really hard to find a card draw in any other way with that ink color, unless you pair it with a Steel Song or a Amethyst variant. So we'll see.
Yeah, you know what, Mac? I want to jump off my original guess, and I'm going to switch my Amber to Mufasa, because I remember we talked about this, right? Like, there's a lot of tribal decks that really need Mufasa to survive. Like, there's Steel Fasa and Blue Fasa, like all these like cool Red Fasa like decks that run off of that card. So I'm gonna switch my Amber guess to actually just that Mufasa legendary. I think for Amber, I think that's a lot of decks go away if he's not around, unless they have some sort of thing that replaces it. But yeah,
sure,
I think you're right.
But Amethyst also seems kind of like a no-brainer to me. I don't know. That's the most popular franchise in all of Disney, so it's like that's kind of like the core legendary staple. To me, a lot of the other ones are kind of forgettable, sorry to say, but it also seems to be the one that sticks for the first 4 sets when it comes to Amethyst, for sure.
I agree. All right, well, we'll see how those end up ultimately turning out. We'll probably be finding out pretty soon here over the course of the next few weeks. We'll report back on more Set Champs shenanigans. We got one queued up this upcoming weekend, and looking forward to it. So
Yeah, we didn't
without
even
any
touch
further
on
ado,
that. We didn't even touch on that, did we? We are actually getting 4 of our 5 back together for another Set Champs on Sunday, hopefully. So hopefully things go well with that, and we'll have maybe more to report in the future on a future episode. Stay tuned.
Yeah. So yeah, looking forward to that. And again, having a bigger group at a Set Champs, it's always a blast. So we'll report back on how that goes. But as always, y'all can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasting experience from. We are fairly active on social media. You can find us on Instagram at the DuckTale Dads. But without any further ado, fellas, let's get the duck out of here.